What's up, everybody? It is Izzy, and today we are going for episode 38, I think, of the Q&A. So with that said, enjoy this very old video of Mello playing around as a puppy, and let's get to the first question of the day here. Will recovering from an injury impact your lifting recovery as well? Yes, it will. So basically, any stress that you go through, it largely comes out of the same bucket. It largely comes from the same place in terms of recovery resources. So whether you're having a fight with your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, whether you have finals coming up that week, whether you don't know how you're going to pay rent, whether you just got fired from your job, anything, it will stress you out and impact your lifting recovery as well. Is it still considered a stall if you fail to progress after one night of bad sleep? A stall is a stall. I mean, you stalled. Now, whether or not you should do anything about that stall is a different story. If there are extenuating circumstances that came up that made your recovery poor for that session, more than likely, I would elect to just try it again in the future. But remember, a stall is a stall. You got bad sleep and caused yourself to stall. You just wasted a session of progress. In most cases, I would say try 2 or 3 times before you rotate in a new movement. Do you think the upper back tolerates more volume than other large muscles? The upper back isn't one muscle. That's kind of the first problem with this, is the upper back is the traps, it's the rear delts, it's the rhomboids, it's even the lats. The lats are part of the upper back, teres major and minor, even the external and internal rotators of the shoulder cuff muscles, the rotator cuff muscles. So that's sort of the first thing that I have is which upper back muscle are you talking about? But in general, the upper back musculature itself is very difficult to fully lengthen and stretch. And any muscles that you can't stretch under load, they tend to take less eccentric damage and they can handle more volume as a result. That said, I mean, most people don't do very much direct trap work outside of rowing to get their traps to grow. Some people don't need any direct rear delt work to get their rear delts to grow. So I don't know if this is true. How valuable do you think medium to intense biking done after heavy squat sessions is to prevent knee injuries in the future? I'll be honest, man, I don't think that has very much value at all. The thing that's going to prevent knee injuries from squatting is squatting with proper form, because squatting with proper form with eccentric control is going to load the knees and stress the knees in exactly the same way that squats are going to load and stress the knees, because it's the exact same exercise. So preventing knee injuries via squats just comes down to squatting correctly, and that will thicken the bones, tendons, and ligaments over time and make you more resilient to injury in your knees. Is nucleus overload training legit? No, it is not. You can only have myonuclei proliferation when a muscle grows so big that the current myonuclei cannot govern it anymore. That's called myonuclear domain. There's a limit to how much muscle that the myonuclei can control, and you only get new myonuclei when the muscle grows big enough that the current ones can't control it. The only way to guarantee that you're going to add myonuclei is by making the muscle bigger or by taking steroids. So it doesn't make sense to do nucleus overload training, which is basically training a muscle every day for 30 days with lightish weights, but higher volumes, because you cannot overload nucleus. You cannot get overload nuclei and get more nuclei in the muscle without actually making the muscle bigger. So if you want to have nucleus overload, the best way to do that is actually just standard training. Make the muscle bigger and bigger and bigger, and you will get myonuclei proliferation once it's big enough that the current ones can't handle it anymore. Are there any benefits to doing legs first in a full body program? So first of all, we have to differentiate between the different kinds of full body programs, because somebody could be running a full body program like Starting Strength or Strongless 5x5s or JP's bodybuilding full body program, where it's basically the same workout every single time. But there are other types of full body programs where, for example, you do legs plus biceps, push plus hamstrings, and there's a focus for each day, and you're not like truly legitimately training the entire body every training session. It's just that you're training upper and lower in the same training session. So if you're doing a program like Starting Strength, where you're supposed to do like squats, benches, deadlifts, presses, chin-ups, rows, all in the same workout, I would highly recommend not doing legs first, because it just taxes everything else too much. The whole rest of the session will suffer. Have you ever met a Nazi online or in real life? I mean, I think I've met all types online. Do I actually think they're about that action in real life? No. It tends to be just like basement dwellers who have no life outside of the computer. And these people, like, by being inflammatory online, that's the closest thing that they can get to like real life social stimulation. So they do that as a hobby because they literally have nothing else to do. They don't leave the house. They don't get off their computer. Very real subtype of human being in this day and age. As far as like real life experiences. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody with like the insignia or anything like that, but my experience with highly bigoted and racist people in general is that they are breathtakingly stupid and usually incredibly ignorant, like backwater country folk. You just don't see as much of that from people who are college educated, or at least would have the intelligence to get a college education if they wanted one. These people usually don't know anything beyond their little hometown. What can I expect if a gym is charging $170 a month? Nothing short of the best night of your life, man. No, just kidding. What is this, like an Equinox in downtown New York? That's absurdly expensive. I've never heard of a gym membership anywhere near that isn't a CrossFit. So, and typically with those CrossFit memberships, you're getting like unlimited open gym and unlimited group classes with instruction, which I would expect something similar. I mean, shit, for $170 a month is a really expensive gym membership. I would want like, I'm thinking about with a $19.99 or $14.99 Planet Fitness membership, I get unlimited tanning, massage chairs, 24/7 access to a gym. For $170 a month, in order for them to be competitive, man, there better be a fucking sauna, a smoothie bar, a pool, a basketball court, a lap track. That's just really expensive. You better be looking for something very specific, and they better be providing that super specific thing, because that's just really, really expensive for a standard gym. I dermaroll my face twice a week. Could I collect blood from that instead of pricking my finger? Man, sometimes I wonder, like when I read the questions that the 19 and 20-year-old age group writes into me, was I that big of a goober? Was I that big of an absolute dingus at that age? And the answer is I must have been. No. First of all, you're 19. You shouldn't be using HGH. This should not even be a consideration for you. Two, when you're talking about blood glucose monitors, you have to prick your finger. That's what it's designed for. You can't use a drop of blood from your face. God. When is it safe to introduce my nephews to strength training? As soon as they're interested. It doesn't have to be calisthenics. It can be weight training. It is basically a long proven myth at this point that lifting weights stunts your growth. I mean, just think about it. If that was true, then instead of all the big, strong farm kids that we have, I mean, every football coach knows where to go when they need to find a new offensive line. We would have a bunch of short, midgety people that worked on farms. And that's just not what happens. So, yeah, you can really introduce them at any age. And the key thing that a lot of kids do is they don't control eccentrics. So try to teach that. Have them do good form and keep it fun. Kids care about fun. They don't care about being jacked. So just keep it fun. My deadlift was 574 in November. It has gone down considerably since then and stayed low. Why might that be the case? So there's potentially two things here, and I'm just going to give you the obvious answer first. One is that your programming isn't working. Your programming just isn't working for you anymore, and you've gone backwards, probably because you're overtraining the deadlift to some extent. Usually it is overtraining that leads to regression and not undertraining that leads to big regression. That said, I will tell you from personal experience that there is a certain type of person who will not be able to match their competition deadlift numbers in training. So if that 574 deadlift was at a meet, and particularly if it was a conventional deadlift, that might be what's going on. I almost always squatted more low bar in training than I was pulling. But then I would go to a meet and I would set big deadlift PRs. Some people get huge boosts from peaking and the competition atmosphere. Nucleus overload training doesn't work, but can training a muscle every single day help bring up a lagging body part? Here's the problem. You said can, right? Can. That means if I say no, I'm saying that there's never, ever in history been a single person that trained a muscle every single day and got benefits. And if I say that, you can go on Reddit right now and read, anecdotes of people who will say, hey, I tried that and it worked for me. That said, are there any instances where I would recommend that someone train a muscle 7 days a week? No, I would always recommend having at least 1 day off per week and focus on a training that gives you the best progression, not the highest frequency. Is physical abuse in a relationship ever justified? Here is the Oxford Dictionary definition of abuse: to treat a person or animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. Under what circumstances could that ever be justified, especially in a person that you are in a relationship with? To be cruel towards someone regularly or repeatedly is basically torture. No, it's not justified to physically hurt people because you're upset about something. Now, when you say physical abuse, to me, that's ruling out self-defense, because You're not abusing somebody if they attack you first and you defend yourself, right? Of course, self-defense can get carried away very quickly, which is why we have very specific laws about what constitutes self-defense and what constitutes an act of aggression. But again, man, this is 2023. Who the fuck thinks it's okay to beat up their domestic partner? What the fuck is wrong with you? Can the 5 on, 2 off model be used with MK677 to combat blood sugar issues? Don't even use MK677. It costs about the same as real human growth hormone. But I don't know where to get that. Well, that's why you shouldn't be doing drugs. That and the fact that you're fucking 19. Listen, these experimental peptides, we have no idea what they do in terms of long-term health. If you're not going to do anabolics because you're worried about the long-term health impacts of those on fertility, on other things, we don't even know what these peptides do. There is no longitudinal studies. You're just shooting in the dark, hoping that everything will be okay. We don't know what the health outcomes are for these things. We have no idea. It isn't even going to make a big difference to your performance. I promise it isn't. HGH without anabolics barely does. Focus on training. Does hydration level play a factor in blood glucose readings? Yes, it does. If you are dehydrated, your readings will be higher. That's why when you go in and get blood work done at a lab, they tell you not to eat, but you're allowed to drink. Now, that said, some of you overthink every single fucking detail about everything. Just wake up, piss, weigh yourself, whatever your morning routine is, have some water, and do the measurement. You don't need to reach some optimal level of hydration before you do the test. That's just going to make you less likely to actually do it. So just drink a glass of water if that's what you normally do, then take the test. Don't overthink this. People have gotten big doing pretty much anything. So how much does training really matter? In my opinion, the 5 most important factors for bodybuilding in rough order of importance would be genetics, drugs, nutrition, lifestyle, and training. So training is the least important one out of all of those things. However, it's also really the only one that you can truly manipulate. So for example, genetics, the most important thing. I think most of you and me, even if we're given all the drugs in the world, are going to lose to Ronnie Coleman natural at a pro bodybuilding show. Dude went pro naturally. Most of you could not do that with all the drugs in the world. Fact. So there's that, right? 2, the drugs thing. It matters whether or not that you're taking them. That's what matters the most. It's not about like optimizing your cycle and using the best combinations. It's just, do you take them and do you take enough? So from there's very little to actually be manipulated other than over time just continuing to take more and more and more. At a certain point, though, you can't just keep taking more and more. You can only increase that dial so much because you're either going to hit your personal tolerance for risk limit, or let's say you don't care at all. You're willing to die when you're fucking 25, 35. You don't care. There's still going to be a level of drugs that when you take them, it has such a detrimental impact on your overall health that it slows down your muscle building results, because you do need a modicum of health in order to build muscle. Okay, now what about lifestyle? Lifestyle, probably more important than training as well, right? But lifestyle is going to be, do you work a really tough job? Is it stressful? Do you have the ability to sleep as much as you want every day? Do you get to relax? Like, think about a pro bodybuilder. All they do is work out, play video games, and sleep, right? The perfect lifestyle. But once you have that, once you've optimized that, no more improvements can be made. You can't twist that dial at all. And nutrition, what about nutrition? Nutrition, you either follow the diet or you don't, right? It's not that complicated. You're not optimizing like what foods to eat. It's just, do you follow the diet or not? Yes or no? So recap, genetics, super important, but your genetics are your genetics. You can't change them. Drugs, really important, more important than training. But if you're natural, you can't take them at all. And if you're enhanced, there's only so much you can take before that stops yielding any dividends. Okay, lifestyle. Your lifestyle is what it is. Mostly that's determined by your job and whether or not you're financially independent. But let's say you become financially independent. Done, dusted. You can't improve lifestyle anymore. Nutrition, not that complicated at the end of the day. Can you stick to your diet or not? Can you stick to a whole foods diet that has the right calories, macros, etc.? It's really binary. It's yes or no. There's no modulations really to be made. Now, last factor, training. Training is the only dial that you can take and turn it in different directions to get different results. It's the only thing you can do to address weak points that aren't growing as fast as the rest of your body. It's the only thing you can do to push volume here or push volume, take it away there. Training is the only thing you can manipulate to actually get better results, especially if you don't take drugs or you're already at the maximum drugs you're willing to take. All right, everybody, that is it for today. These videos are getting long. Wow. If you like the video, like the video. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. have a great rest of your day and enjoy the super cute photo of Kona, of course. Bye-bye.